The following is a production of Medfield TV, community shows.
Let's hit it, folks.
We're going to call to order this meeting, school committee meeting on December 19th, 2019. Good evening. Good evening, folks. So,
Good evening, folks.
at this time,
TV land.
I don't know, I guess it's mute, but I suppose I should ask for public input, but we don't have, anyone here, so maybe we should just quit.
All right.
Before we go to Mr. Vaughn, why don't we just go through the minutes, Tim?
I just don't have the date in front of me.
Sure, December 5th and 11/14.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for December 5th and for November 14th. Executive session.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, fabulous. Now, Mr. Vaughn, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So thanks for your patience, and Campbell, I feel like I'm talking to your back, so I apologize. It feels like it's a little late to do the beginning of the year update, but here we are. Jeff has been wonderful about allowing, there are a few family commitments I had at the other two meetings, so thank you. So want to report for the beginning, but also almost mid update on some things going on at Blake for this year. So I want to make sure I do thank the school committee, central office, our custodians, our support staff, students, families. I feel like we've had a really good opening, a strong start to the year. Our current enrollment is 576 students. We have 193 in 6th grade, 186 in 7th, and 197 in 8th, which is it's a little higher than it was at the end of last year. The numbers of new students, including up through today. We've had 9 new students in 6th grade enroll, 5 new students in 7th, and 7 new students in 8th grade, including one that is starting January 2nd as well. So we've had a total of about 21 new students at Blake as well. So, each year there are students between 6th and 7th, 7th and 8th that go off to private school, move, but and this has been sort of the case the last few years, that what we had kind of anticipated, we always have probably about 10 more than we would anticipate just from move-ins that's been at the middle school. This year also we have 11 new staff members at Blake, and that's including all staff from support staff to shared staff as well, and that includes reconfigurations and reassignments. Like for example, Susan Bykoff, who was the math department chair, is now a full-time math teacher at Blake. Mary Ellen Dubois, similar too. So I think of those 11 new staff members, only 2 of them are new to the district. Some had been at elementary, with some of our teaching assistants came to Blake, and just other reconfigurations in that way. Also, thinking about Jess Safer as a math department chair, she is of our staff now, although she's been a long time math teacher for the district.
Does she share between?
6 through 12. So all of our department chairs are at least 6 through 12.
Okay.
If not, 2 through 12 and pre-K through 12 as well. So our theme for this year that we chose as a staff is courage. And we started the year with our work really talking about, as we try to do each year, is centering on definitions of courage and what that means, and really trying to make sure that we're not just talking about broad, massive acts of courage. It's one of those topics that we wrestle with our themes about, trying to make sure that students don't have to see that, you don't have to be, just names come to mind, Malala or Martin Luther King to show courage. And I think that's a piece too that we did a lot with our staff early on, is talking about how do we all show acts of courage, how do our families do. I personally feel every middle schooler shows a heck of a lot of courage every day just coming into middle school. I mean, truly navigating the lunchroom, navigating the bus rides, all those pieces, and trying to really talk about that a lot. And really what that means, and really tying to the district's work with social emotional learning. That's at the heart of it. Really the piece of, if that's not in a good place, you're never going to access learning. So I want to be really sensitive to that with the adolescents. With that, each year we try to recognize, or we do recognize 9/11, and using that too, showed a video about how, quote unquote, ordinary citizens showed active courage in responding to that. So take some time with our students as well to do that. Our goals for this year fall under our overarching question of how we're trying to cultivate and curate progression of student learning and growth. three goals. One is we want to make sure that we're always focusing on student learning. That's at the heart of it. Thinking about our professional growth as a staff and how we're trying to look at our teaching practices as well. And then also enhance reflection via both formal and informal systems of feedback. Thinking that reflection, that reflective process, I think is how, I know I can speak from the I, but also as, talking with adults and students, that reflective process on any type of feedback, what it might mean. Day-to-day feedback, broad feedback will hopefully help foster some metacognition for our students. So with that, focus areas in two that I'm just gonna touch on, you heard about at the last from R&D projects as well. Advisory is always not a moving target, but sort of what do we do at that time? And as we shared and talked about the last meeting, that it's such an important piece of time, and I feel very fortunate to know that we have it embedded into our schedule. A lot of other middle schools are really trying to get it in. It's a hard piece in that. And then for the last year, we've done a real deep dive look as a staff. How do we make it better? Last year we did Project Happiness, and you heard a little bit about it. And I think that, we got feedback. And feedback is good, as I just talked about. It was very reflective for all of us. And so at the end of last year, we took some time to really really try to channel that feedback through our site council survey from adults, our staff, and from students to try to take what was working from that and build it in and to formalize it. So, and you heard from the team, the Wednesday advisory has really been going well, and we did a survey of staff mid-October, and they just were thrilled with it. One piece that we're really looking at is what to do with that sustained silent reading time, the Tuesday, Thursday. So we're starting in the new year with what we call two different pieces. On Tuesdays will be unplugged time, the value of really the non-device time, and on Thursdays, the acronym we're using is TWIN, time to work independently, and thinking what that might look like. It could be just downtime, some mindfulness. Kids really did give some feedback. They like doing puzzles. They like doing Play-Doh. They like doing that. Other kids have really asked a lot for, can we work on homework? And I think that was a real big discussion for our staff because some staff were saying, well, but they shouldn't work on devices. And that's just it's hard. I mean, we're a one-to-one school. A lot of the homework is on accessing the device. So if we're gonna do that, we've got to allow it. And what that will look like. And I'll touch on a piece that's been very helpful with us with that. So that's a big piece. And also with the Term 1 report card through our advisory committee, working with myself and the advisory team came up with reflective questions to ask of kids. And we shared those questions with parents as well on Monday to help the conversations hopefully at home. Because oftentimes, I know as a parent myself, struggle with what do I say to my kid about whatever the feedback might be. And so to prompt so that we got some nice feedback from parents was it really helped them to know that their kids had actually had to answer those questions themselves. So like, what did you share? What are you working on? And what goes from there. So that's been helpful. And also we asked some questions about what was working in advisory. So our team's gonna be looking in early January to kind of build that in to make sure we're looking at it. Other focus you heard from the 7th grade science team is really just looking at our systems of feedback, formal and informal, and our calibration of practices, making sure that we're really trying to be really living what our belief system is about, that we're calibrated, that it should not matter what teacher you have, that the systems of feedback should be consistent and not that piece. So really trying to calibrate when we're looking at student work, what does that work like? So the progress mapping that the 7th grade science team shared has really been a nice model. Coupled with that, working with our department chairs is trying to articulate, the term is power standards for each discipline, because each discipline has about 40 standards from the state, and really trying to narrow it down to 5 to 7. To really, what are we going to focus in on?
So not unlike what we've done with teachers in the last few years too. So we spent some time with a consultant working with every person that does evaluations in the district, and we spent some time doing calibration. So this is what it looks like in practice in a classroom. We visited classrooms. High school folks visited elementary visited high school and middle school. We had a lot of time in a couple of years just to do a lot of this work, so calibration, so that if I come in and evaluate and I see something going on in the classroom, then I know what it looks like, and everyone else that's in that team will know what it looks like and agree pretty much on what that looks like. So we've done that. And then in terms of the power standards piece, we've been working with the association for the last year to try to pare down what that evaluation rubric looks like. So that evaluation rubric, like the superintendent one, has a zillion things on it. Yeah. So we tried to, we looked at it in a group with the teachers and said, can we identify, the top 10 or 12 areas that we think are important for a Medfield teacher? important for our kids. So we've done that work, and it's very similar, just doing it in a different way, looking at power standards as a curriculum, and then calibration in terms of grading. So it's a common theme throughout the district. It's just, when you apply it to different groups of the district, it just means different things. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Jeff. That's very well articulated with that, because it also will really tie into a lot of our district's work looking at the multi-tiered systems of support that Mary and Christine are leading that work in, because it really will help us make sure that we're providing an education that's accessible to every student and all students. Because with the power standards, like, so what is it really we're going to focus on for learning? And I think that's a big piece. It also really helps just in the sense of we have kids that move from out of state, other districts, and what would be the appropriate piece for us to focus in on to really assess student learning and progress.
It's also nice for a district to kind of take control of that too, right?
Yeah.
So we're saying as a community, we're saying as a district, these are the most important things that we want our kids to learn. And we're not just having a one-size-fits-all from the state. You know, that's not what it is. It's really taking, okay, that's all important things that we should know about, but this is what we key on as a district out of the most important things for our kids to take away from. And again, at the high school level, it looks like the work that they're doing to defining a graduate. So, you know, they've done that work the last year. Like, these are the most important things that we want our kids to know when they graduate. So it goes throughout the district. It just looks different in different places.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. A book that we're reading with Site Council is Middle School Matters by Phyllis Fagel, which I highly recommend. It's a great book that we're reading as a Site Council, looking at that, and some of our staff members are as well. Piece I do want to touch base on, one of the struggles we've always had with iPads and is the idea of school-managed iPads is Apple Classroom, is a feature that's come in, which is not like Google Classroom at all. It's a management system that really has been, I think it's a game changer for supervision, and it has a lot of features. And at our faculty meeting, so we had some teachers pilot it. Jeff came to Marjorie Heim's podcasting class and tried it out to see, because I want to make sure Jeff was in the loop about what it looked like. Kids were not thrilled about it because it feels very Big Brother-ish, which it kind of is. And their reactions were like, whoa, 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 time out, like the game's over in the way. But so there were some questions about privacy and things like that, but it really does allow the piece of really trying to help kids to better manage devices. I mean, it's a hard thing that we're all struggling with. And Monday's faculty meeting was about this as well, working with Diane Horvath, who did a great job showing it as a staff what it looks like. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up about it, but I think it's a really nice piece that's going to allow for management. It also, I think, will give teachers some comfort that may be a little as uneasy about it, worried about the management of that. It really can help lock students in to that. And from a privacy concern, once kids disconnect from the access point, the teacher is no more visible on that. But from a beyond just a management piece, it also does give a nice screenshot of, at the end you can take a screenshot of which apps were actually used throughout the class. So from a true curriculum piece, that if there's a menu of ideas that kids might be accessing on, like 7 different sites you could do or 7 different apps, you can get a screenshot and get which ones were kids actually using in that way. Real practical piece that I thought was great, Jason Heim gave a open resource assessment. So almost like what used to be an open book test. Had Apple Classroom going, and the rules were you can't text and you can't share a Google Doc with a peer, because that would be cheating. But any other resource you use YouTube, use your resources in that way. Had the classroom piece, and they did that, and it was such a very deep level assessment because they had all their resources to do within the class. So I think that type of piece, you would not have had a teacher want to do that because of the risk and with that. So I think a very practical view that's going to get to much deeper learning assessments, I think, in that way has potential.
How extensive is the pilot?
It's happening. So now teachers that are using it are using it. It's free. And my hope is that all teachers would be really employing it. It's
pretty intuitive.
I'm sorry, let me make sure I understand, Tim, your question.
I thought you said it was a pilot.
In the sense of, at the very beginning, a few teachers were trying it out before we trained the full staff, because I wanted to make sure, so as of Monday, it's rolling out in that way, this past Monday.
And the example of Big Brother is just what you described. They do something that they're.
So the way it works is, students come in, you set up the app, and it's, Apple Classroom. Kids, once they go in through their settings, it should pop up because you're within the same access point, and you give a code. They log in, and I have access now, and I can see what all of you are doing. I can't see specifically, all I see is what app you're in. So one thing too, which I really like, is if a kid's on messaging, I can't see what the actual message is. I just know they're off task.
You can just bust them.
Yeah, right, but in the way, but
Kidding.
one thing too is it's on the settings, we set the norm of, do you have to ask permission for me to see what's on your device? Or is it always access? And one thing we talked a lot about was we're really trying to foster appropriate ways of digital citizenry. I would far rather have that modeling of, just like, Leo, do I have your permission to post this picture online? So, Leo, I'm gonna take a look at your device, is that okay? So if Leo says no, I know something's up. I'm gonna look anyway. But we just kind of model that piece of, that's the truth in that way, but really trying to make it that this is a collaborative piece and try to teach that lesson. We've had some students say, no, you can't. And it's like, well, come show me your iPad. We'll go from there. One feature too is you can put a lock on all devices just like that. So the sense of what actually happens is a padlock image comes up on their screen right away. From a practical view, an example of when that might happen is if the announcements come on in the middle of class and you need everyone's attention. You can just hit lock, it comes up, all the eyes come up right away. Or we need an announcement, a safety issue in that way too. It's really trying to teach kids how to self-manage in that way. It only works on Apple devices. So that's a piece. So it would work on laptops. Jeff and I talked about, we're gonna start using it at faculty meetings too, seeing who's paying attention, in that way. But I will say too, we've shared with families, it's a great resource to use at home. You can do it, this is not a school-based thing, anyone can use it. So if you're wondering what your child's doing up in the bedroom, you can do that. You don't necessarily, but the thing is, you don't see what's on the screen. It's a tricky thing, but it's a very practical, very useful tool that you used to have to pay for, that Apple opened up. So I think it's a really good tool. Does that explain it, Tim? Okay. Just 3 other things. Fuse endeavor, we're continuing through the Highlander Institute. Last year, Marjorie was our fellow. Julie Dalzell is our fellow this year. Early adopters are Seth Hellerstein, Kara Farrell, Jillian Shaw, and Michael Gow, trying to hit all of our disciplines. And it's looking at blended learning, and they've really added a component of culturally responsive teaching as well into this program. So we're working at that. We have a design team working on that. Our ADL peer trainers, this is year 6, we're continuing as well. And the other piece that has been formalized thanks to support of PTO, our budget, and Coalition, and also CPAC is Colby Swepberg and Zach Kerr will be returning in March to do some work on safe and inclusive learning, specifically around LGBTQ with our students. So they'll be coming in following a similar model in the past, and they'll be coming in March. So looking forward to that. Tomorrow, some of our 8th graders, almost half the class are going into Christmas in the City, which was an awesome response given the fact that they are giving up their afternoon, which they would have had off. It was just unfortunate timing that typically we go earlier. The way the calendar fell, this was the only day they could come in, and we had 110 students sign up to go, which is just awesome.
What time are they coming back at?
They should get back around 2.
Okay.
Want to make
That's great.
sure, and also just a shout out that our staff had about 8 teachers volunteer to go beyond contractual hours and to do this, which is awesome. So it's a good problem we had of like, oh boy, we need 3 buses now to make it work. So that's great. And then just coming up, we also at Tilden Village looking to the Day of Service coming up in our blood drive as well. And last week's Hour of Code went really well too. So
And there should be an article about that coming out soon.
Yeah.
The Hour of Code. So.
That's all I have.
Great stuff.
Trying to be
Blake.
mindful about being brief and concise. Goal I have. It's one of my true goals I have. So any questions about anything?
I'm just grateful for the reflective nature of Blake and the work you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the support. It means a lot.
Thank you.
It does. Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Natalie.
right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Va bene. All right, so we're going to go a little bit out of order, and if we could do the budget stuff?
Sure.
Please, FY21 budget.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Nat. Good night.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a short presentation just to review some of the initial FY21 budget numbers that we've been working on. Here we go. So our process to date, typical that we do each year. Leadership team establishes those priorities for schools and district based on our strategic plan, of course. Principal department chairs develop their budgets. And then Michael and I meet with every principal, every department chair, go through that whole process and try to develop, see what they need in terms of staffing, what they need for supplies, all that. We go through all that with them. We also have the annual doom and gloom meeting, Board of Selectmen and Warrant Committee.
It's not called that anymore.
It is, yeah, I know, but we're gonna keep that we're gonna, in Mike's memory, we're gonna keep that going. So to communicate those FY '21 expectations to all department heads in town. A little different this year in terms of that. We weren't given a real number to stay within from warrant committee. A lot of that dealt with the capital that we've talked about at our last meeting. So then Michael and I developed that initial budget. And again, I think it's really important that we remember that this is just our first pass. It's our draft initial budget. So there'll be many more drafts, as you know, that come through here. We'll post this online. It's not gonna be just 5 slides of a budget. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we do. So just wanna be clear about that. We have our public hearing that is at the end of January. And that is the superintendent's recommended budget, and it becomes your official budget at that meeting if you vote to that, whatever that might be. And then that's submitted to the town the next day by town charter. Is it the 31st, Michael, needs to be in town, I believe? So we're cutting it a little close this year based on the calendar, but we'll have it to town the next day.
Is it the same timeline now that they've moved town meeting out by 5
I don't think they
week?
changed that at all. I think they left that bylaw the same. They just
Yeah.
changed the town meeting bylaw to the first Monday in May. So, you know, one of the things that we try to do is use our strategic plan to guide what we're doing. And, you know, you've seen these before. Really, in goal number 1, looking to maintain, enhance our current staffing, which you'll see that I'll go through a couple of different positions that we're looking to add and programs that we're looking to add. Continue that commitment to professional development. You know, we always talk about, we've had R&D the last couple of meetings. Those are really important to us. So that's a bucket of professional development. We also have the course reimbursement piece that is important to us and our teachers. And then we have conference and travel. So 3 different areas that we focus on with professional development. And then again, to always continue to maintain and improve our infrastructure with technology. Our social emotional well-being, again, maintain that current status with wellness. And obviously the RISE program, which has been a huge success in the high school. And continue to promote the outside collaboration with the agencies, which is so important to us. We certainly can't do it all on our own as a school district, and we've been great to collaborate with other agencies. So our goal number 3 deals specifically with special education staffing, and then you'll see later some programming that we'd like to do in special education next year, and then enhance the opportunities for our students outside the classroom. Certainly goal number 4, committed to contributing to a vibrant community, appropriate resource allocation. You know, that's been there since our beginning, because when we looked at our strategic plan, there was definitely not equal access in terms of allocation, especially at the elementary level.
Jeff, sorry, can you
Yep.
go back 1 page?
Sure.
How do you envision maintain and enhance opportunities for students outside the classroom?
I think one of the things that we've talked about is making sure that we provide additional opportunities for kids outside the school day. So make sure that we still have the clubs, we still have sports, we still have the music, art, theater programs, all that. Make sure we maintain that, but improve it if we need to. So add additional staffing if we need to do that. You know, certainly we've added some clubs. I think we're at the year. This is the last year of doing a co-op with the ski team. So I believe, I'm not positive on this, but I believe next year is when we have to make a decision as a school district to have a ski team just for Medfield and not doing a co-op. So those kinds of things that
Right,
just,
right.
you know, provide opportunities for kids. And then at the lower levels, making sure we do different programs after school, like for instance at Wheelock last year and at Dale this year, we've added an after-school program called FAST, which is an outside vendor that does a lot of programs around, and in more active sports-oriented type of things. They do the chess wizards at Wheelock. So those kinds of things, making sure that we can provide opportunities for
Okay,
kids.
good.
Of course, goal 5, you know, it's important to maintain our director of facilities position, one that we do with the town. You know, Amy's been a great addition to our staff, and she's really knowledgeable and the perfect point person for anything that goes on within the district in terms of facilities and with the town, so she's been great. You know, and then obviously Dale Street will be a big part of what we do for the next 4 years. So, you know, all of those items have budget implications as we go forward. We did make some assumptions in our budget for FY '21. So federal entitlement grants will be level funded. And remember now, this is going to be another year of us not getting Title I funds because we no longer qualify for that. So that was a loss of, I believe, 88,000, Michael, somewhere around there. It was in the 80s, 84, 80, whatever, under 90,000 that we were getting for Title I, and we no longer qualify for that. because our poverty level went below the 2%. So Chapter 70 will be increased by $30 per student, so that's, according to the landmark vote that just took place in November. That is gonna be our increase. Again, we're not gonna benefit as much as other communities will, but what we benefit is the $30 per student, and then what we can get reimbursement for circuit breaker and transportation once that is implemented. We anticipate the enrollment's gonna increase again at the elementary level. We're gonna continue our tuition-based programs. And then circuit breaker, which is a huge part of what we do for our funding for special education, we're projecting that to be at 70% right now. That could go as high as 75%, but we've seen it as low as 47. We think 70 is a pretty safe number at this point in the budget process. We'll get more information certainly before town meeting, but maybe not before our public hearing.
Jeff?
Yep.
Where are we being funded for circuit breaker this year?
It was 75? 75, yeah, so it's just all over the place. We don't know if it's, because the law is clear, it's by appropriation.
Right.
So, we'll have to see what they do. We just think that it's safe to be at 70 right now.
Okay.
So the drivers, typical drivers that we have almost every year, collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts, personnel is always 80+% of any school budget. We're no different here. Our transportation, we have an option in our current transportation contract to extend to a 4th year, which we'll do. We have special education through Accept, which has been really mixed reviews this year. So we're looking at other options. One of the options that we're looking at is providing transportation to our in-district special education students that require transportation using our own vehicles. So we're looking at possibly a capital expense of that, or collaborating with Millis to do that, because Millis has their own vehicles, and seeing if we can work something out with them. It's going to be, number one, better service, we think, and certainly number two, in the long haul, will be cost savings, but there could be some upfront money. So we're still investigating that again. It's not even January yet, so we're still working on that. Our special education in district, certainly out of district, in program development, which I'll talk about near the end of the presentation. Professional development continues to be important. Increasing teachers at Memorial. So right now we have an increase of 1 kindergarten teacher at Memorial, and then we've increased a specialist fractionally to make sure they can support the new classroom. And then our health insurance costs, again, we know that doesn't appear in our budget, only in regional districts it appears, but it does impact how much the town can give us. So we want to always remember that and keep that on there. So here's the initial. FY20 approved budget was $36,471,424. Our initial at this point is $37,936,155, or an increase of 4.02%. So what does that do for us at this point? It maintains all of our current staff and programs, includes all the steps and lanes, longevity, and increase to Unit A and teaching assistants. Funds all of our other CBAs. So remember, we're going to start negotiations soon with secretaries, custodians, and food service. So we've embedded increases there. Adds 1 kindergarten teacher, increases specialists. Again, as I said, to make sure that the increased enrollment in the increased sections, those students receive specialists as well. Develops a new program for special education 18 to 22 transition. So what we've done for years here is used Accept or another program to do our transition program for our students that we provide education for till they're 22. We feel like, and Mary's done a great job with this, we feel like that we can do that in-house and at a zero cost in terms of increase, and I should say budget neutral, but provide a better program for our kids and do it in Medfield so they're not taking a bus to a different program or different town. So we're in the midst of working with that. Our goal is to get a apartment somewhere close to town that we could rent, so that it would be real life situations, so the kids with the teacher would be spending some time in the apartment, hopefully get some internship or jobs in the downtown area. That's what our goal is, so that's what we're working towards. So we're looking to see if we can find a inexpensive apartment close. We've been watching. They come up, but they're snagged right away. So we have the word out, and we're trying to get something in town to do that. We feel like that's that's a more authentic experience for our kids than outfitting a classroom with a washer, dryer, and a kitchen. So we want to make sure it's a real good experience for those kids. So that's what we're trying to do there. Continue to support the year 3 of the policy manual, increase the technology for hardware replacement, addresses increase the legal costs. So you guys have seen the numbers. Our legal numbers, especially last year, doubled from the previous years. So we went over budget last year for the first time since I've been here in legal cost. So we made some adjustments in our budget to make sure if that happens again, that we'll be covered for that. But it has doubled compared to the last couple of years. Increase to Medfield High School for NEASC, as Robert had said when he came here, the NEASC accreditation process is coming to Medfield. That's typically a range of around 19 to 25,000 just for that process, so we put some increases in there for that. And then level funds most of our non-personnel lines. So it gives you a sense, we accomplished a lot in a 4.02, I think, at this point. But again, we'll have to have our meetings with the budget subcommittee and warrant committee, town officials, et cetera, and just kind of work it through like we do each year to get to a number that makes sense.
Just one nit, but
Sure.
you're saying the new program for special ed is budget neutral?
It is.
So why, I mean, that implies that it's not part, it wouldn't need to be part of the 4%. Or
Well, it just, that slide is what you get with the 4% essentially. So that's what that means. So everything is in there. So that's a new program, so it would be part of the increase. So the increase gets you that, Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, just
Okay.
get confused with that, but budget neutral would say it's the same cost, whatever we're paying now, it's the same next year.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I don't, I
So
just
that
ask
is
this-
budget neutral, but what I'm saying with this slide is that these are new programs that will, or things that are new that will come with a 4.02
Okay.
increase.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
so
Because
I'm
we will
more
have
just
staff
thinking of
that we will be
when might-
paying instead of doing.
Right, so we pay
won't be paying
for the staff
except.
more than, so it's
Right.
additional staff. So instead of subbing out to accept, we'll
Right.
have someone that will do that in-house, and then, so that's, right now, what we're paying accept, we feel like we can do it budget neutral.
Right. So it still impacts the budget, it's simply within a different line and a different area that we would,
And it may not end up being budget neutral if if we can't find rent for where we're looking, right? If we're trying to do that project, it ends up being $2,000 or $3,000 more, then it doesn't become budget. But right now, that's what our plan is for budget neutral.
Okay. Yeah, and I just, like, even, because this is probably the boilerplate of what we might talk about later. You just say, our intention is budget
Right,
neutral.
right.
We're still working it out, but we think it's a great program.
Right,
And I said it's a nit from the beginning.
right.
I just
No, that's fine.
If I'm confused, others may.
So where we are in terms of, after this meeting, we'll have a budget subcommittee established. We already have our assignment, I think, Newton Thompson is our assignment from the warrant committee. So we would have a budget subcommittee, I would think, with those members and Newton and start to go through that process, so. Be happy to answer any other questions, but again, it's early. It's real early.
Jeff, do you want to speak a little to what the different process is for the warrant committee this year? Because I think it's interesting, and it's so very different from what has happened previously, just in terms of their timeline and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you might know more than I do. I don't have a lot of information on it. I was, we were given our assignment and we were having those conversations with Newton like we typically do, but it's definitely, it looks different, that's for sure. Now, with all that said, I'm not sure it's gonna look different for us. I still think that because we are who we are, that we'll still have a little bit of different process or similar to what's been in the past, but
Right.
I think that the issue that we have, and we've talked about in the last meeting, is with the capital.
Yeah.
That's, we have needs as a district in, certainly we're investigating and going through what we may need for modular classrooms at Memorial. And we're gonna have to figure out a way to do that, so, because it looks like capital won't support that. So we'll
Right.
have to work on that in the next month or two. Hopefully, we have a plan before the public hearing so we can share some of that information.
And the modular classrooms that we would be looking at it would probably be housing some of our pre-K kids, right?
Yeah, I think
Is
that's
that
what we've
we're
looked at.
thinking, or-
That's
yeah.
what we've looked at, our pre-K
Yeah.
kids, because right now we have 4 teachers sharing 2 rooms
Right,
in the preschool program, so I mean, I think it's important, and we've had conversations about this before. It's really important to have a robust preschool program in any school district.
Right.
You know, not only is it important for the kids in terms of their development and learning, but as a school district, it allows you to get kids and families in our district at 3 and 4 years old. So not everyone goes to early intervention.
Right.
And, you know, when we're able to work with families and work with kids when they're 3 and 4, instead of having them show up at 5 years old on our doorstep, better things can happen for children.
That's
So
absolutely true.
I think it's a really important thing for us to look at going forward.
Right. And
Certainly.
we also need to have enough of a population so that the kids who do need to be serviced with an IEP are getting the other children who are modeling for them,
Absolutely.
and that it doesn't become simply a special ed preschool.
Absolutely.
And the more we reduce our population, the less we are actually helping kids.
It's, you
in
know,
general.
it's preschool for all is really the way to go, and I think that's what we need to work toward. That could be our goal. Right now, we can't do it because of space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's important to keep in
I
mind.
do think it is one of those really important things we should be keeping in mind as we think about things for the next several years.
I always appreciated Chris Morrison's question. At this point in time, he would always ask,
What's not in it?"
not in that you would like?
Yeah, so what's not in that initial one is additional positions that principals have asked for.
Such as?
I mean, I think what's not in here now that we're really gonna try to work our way in is elementary guidance, because we have part-time folks, you know, switching between buildings and making sure we have full-time people there. And, you know, you can't say to a kid, okay, it's Thursday, so you can't have trouble today. You know, only can have trouble on Friday when the person's here. So I think we need to really look at that, Michael and I are gonna work on that in January and hopefully figure that out without increasing. That's probably one of the bigger ones that we've looked at. That was asked for by both the guidance department and elementary principals. So it's a real focus for us right now. I think there was some other personnel that, like for me, I look at the guidance at elementary, and that's not a nice to have. That's something that's really important, and we should have it there. Some of the other positions that we looked at, additional help in technology. You know, I think that, and the teachers have talked to me about this too, that we have almost the same number of staff now in technology that we did 10 years ago when we started doing all this, right? And now we have a zillion devices, and we have network issues and this and that, and we really haven't expanded that. And, you know, we have a technology director that, you know, works all day, every day, on weekends, because he's doing the town and he's doing the schools. And that's difficult. So we were able to hire a network person to help Owen out, but that's, you know, a couple years ago, and that's worked out really well. But the kind of boots on the ground people in the classrooms, we still need to probably add additional people to help the teachers out. It's
also a liability for both the town and the schools. You know, you
Yep.
can only do so much with one person around security, around trying to make sure that our technology is up to date enough that we are not getting held hostage for Bitcoin or whatever it is. You know,
Right,
It's really,
right.
it is about liability, and to not have the town also be thinking that way is, it's penny wise, pound foolish.
So I
but
think
it's
there
hard.
was in the budget, it was last year or the year before, I think there was a additional technology person on the town side. And then, I think for some reason, they didn't fill that position or whatever, but, it's in the back of our mind that we're always thinking about that, because we know that our folks are doing a really good job, but they
Yeah.
could use help, no doubt about it. But I think
And,
those are
you
two
know, Owen
areas
won't
in
be
MA
here
that right
forever.
now, and they're always people, right? Because
Yeah.
those are the most expensive parts of the budget. I think
Right.
that's important.
I just always appreciated that question,
No, sure.
you know.
Yeah, and Chris always wanted to get to that point, because he knows that through all those meetings, there are a lot more asks that make it, you know,
Right.
that make it to that, so.
I was also gonna ask, is there a range of like, what might cause it to go up or down other than that? I mean, that factors outside.
You mean the
of-
percentage?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, you know, if we look at additional special education, we get a better sense of that as the year goes through. That could bring it up or down. Transportation costs could bring it up and down once we see what the numbers are for say, accept and those things. I always say the personnel piece is always fluid depending on what we have for students and what the needs are. So those things can always change. I think you'll see something you know, I think by the public hearing, there'll be, hope that guidance will be in there somewhere, but that may bring it up above. You know,
I know we've cut technology infrastructure the last couple budget cycles that I've been a part of.
Mhm.
And surprisingly so, I supported that, of course, but, you know, knowing my background. However, I would mention that there's been a release, and I'm not sure if Medfield has taken advantage of the Category 2 funds for E-rate, but they.
Owen just started them last week, just started doing all that.
They could have just increased it an additional 20% on top of
Yeah.
150, which we still have to spend money to get it,
Right.
obviously.
When I say just started doing, I mean, he just started doing the paperwork. He
Yeah.
does it every year, he just starts.
Sure,
with it.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Clarify what your
sure, so
technical.
yeah, so E-rate is a federal program run by the FCC, and whenever you pay your cable bill, your cell phone bill, there's a little piece of money that's taken out there that goes into a big pot of money nationally. And it's traditionally underspent, so matter of fact, there was an extra $2 billion sitting in there this year. Because it's a really complicated process to apply for. That's why they have consultants to do that.
Right.
I highly recommend even we hire a consultant to do it, just to make sure it's done right, because it can be very cumbersome. But because there's it will pretty much for a town like Medfield, because of our socioeconomic status, we pretty much get a blanket 40% reimbursement on things like our internet access and any wraparound service that would be like a firewall kind of thing. But there's something called Category 2, which there was a 5-year program that said for every student you have $150 to spend on infrastructure. And if you didn't take advantage of that, or even if you did, because there was such a large amount of money left, they've expanded what you can spend that money on, and they've added another 20%. So if we didn't spend any of the Category 2 funds, we now have $180 per student, so which is $500,000. Now, in order to get that, you have to spend, that's only on reimbursement, so that's 40% reimbursement. So in order to get the whole $500,000 we could get, you have to spend,
Spend it.
you know, the 60%.
Right.
So,
Could be about what
however,
we're planning on putting into free cash this year, I think.
yeah, right. However, it is always there, so you can do a year-over-year plan where you're spending so much, and you get more longevity out of your dollar by 40% on things like infrastructure. And I know wireless has come up a few times when I've talked to teachers
Sure, yeah.
and principals, and that is something that can be supported even as a service. So you can actually now, it is now E-ratable to hire a company to come in and put in all the switches and all the Wi-Fi, and then they'll also manage it, so that Owen wouldn't have to. So if anything goes wrong, you just call the help desk and they take care of it. So things of that nature. So that's new this year. So
I'm just trying to picture Owen, you know, giving that up, so.
oh, no, you still can maintain
Yeah.
control to yourself.
Right.
But you're right. It's a different.
Mike, we should break that out, you know, once we meet with Owen about some of that, we'll break that out maybe when we start get closer to the end of the budget season, so we can see what that
It
looks
is
like.
cumbersome. If he's doing it himself, I don't. It's a lot of filing, and if your language is wrong, it's a real pain. So.
He seemed to think we were in good shape, because he had mentioned to me last week, so
Cool.
we'll kind of go from there and see, but we'll break that up for you, so we can have that.
Just curious about
Yeah.
that.
Mhm. Anything else? Again, super early, so if anything else comes up
Good question.
that you think of after, you know, shoot me an email about it, but or whoever's on the budget subcommittee, let them know, we can work through that, but, thanks.
Beautiful. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Speaking of subcommittees, so, we've got our 5 subcommittees listed here. And, based on the criteria I was thinking about was really individual strengths, our availability to attend, various meetings, our timing of elections, i.e. if Jess and I were both on the budget subcommittee, and either or neither of us or one of us are not reelected this coming spring, that would leave us in a very precarious position. And, for example, and also breadth of experience, just gaining experience in other realms. So what I have proposed is on the budget subcommittee, Jess Riley and Megan Glenn. And on negotiations, Jess and Leo. On policy, Megan and Tim. On building committee, Leo is on it, and, but perhaps we can explore having a backup for you, Leo, just in case you can't make a meeting, but you'd be the primary role, you know, you have your voting right, et cetera. But just because it's such a huge role, especially now, just to have someone present would
I
be
think that would be
fantastic.
helpful, actually, with the
And take the
building
pressure
projects.
off you, because
Yeah.
you travel, or when you're
Well,
not,
and then
or,
just for breadth of knowledge, right?
for sure,
Yeah.
And the
absolutely.
experience, because it is a very complex process, and it's a healthy experience, it's a great experience to go through.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely.
Okay.
So if you choose to do that, then what I'll do is, I can reach out to Mike, and then we'll redo the paperwork for MSBA.
Yeah.
Because there's a requirement of only, of having one, but you can have as many, you just can't have a quorum with school committee, but.
Right.
So it's, it's not an issue having two school committee members.
Yeah,
on
I
it.
just
You have
popped
to
him an
redo it.
email saying we were exploring it, and we
Okay.
were gonna have a chat.
Okay.
Sometime, I think, in between the
I think
holidays.
it's such a big deal for the town, and.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a lot of questions, I think having multiple people
For
represented
sure,
there, I think it's a
yeah,
good idea.
okay, beautiful. So I was thinking, obviously Leo, and I could do it as well. And then, the evaluation committee, it was really Dorothy Presser, who was here the other day giving our training, and I thought that that would be a huge help, because even when I was compiling the information for Dr. Marsden evaluation summary, it would have been so helpful if I had somebody to bounce off some
Right,
ideas, and, you know, because this was, I just took tallies, and I got, you know, it was my perspective, so if I had a second person, or the chair had a second person to work with, that would really be a more efficient way and a more holistic way of doing it. So I thought for the evaluation process, myself, or the chair, and Tim. So, do we have a motion to approve those nominations?
So
Can we
moved.
do them as in,
Okay,
in aggregate or individually? How does that go procedurally?
I can do it, per line item if you'd prefer.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay, so budget, again, Jess and Megan. Motion?
I don't, can I motion
So
myself?
moved.
So move second.
Second.
Great. Are you okay with that, Megan?
Can you second yourself?
I just did.
You sure can.
Yeah, it says, I looked it up, the chair appoints.
more money in our
and
legal
then
fees this year, so
the full committee
didn't
just
work.
has to approve, so.
Okay. Yep.
So for negotiations, again, Jess and Leo.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Policy, Megan and Tim. Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second,
I second.
thank you. All in favor? I
Aye.
should have said that after each one, sorry. Evaluation, myself and Tim. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and building committee, Leo and Anna Mae. Motion? Do we have a motion?
Make a
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Tim, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, so it sounds like we're moving in the right direction. Thank you, folks. And at this time,
I did.
All right, good.
I know it by initials.
okay, great, thank you. All righty. At this point in time, I'll read the summary based on the individual evaluations that each subcommittee, each school committee member wrote. And so we've got 4 pages. So, Medfield 2021, our strategic 5-year plan, has been our guiding compass, and Dr. Marsden has been fully committed to fulfilling the goals and intentions set within the document. His evaluation is directly linked to the progress of these goals. Each school committee member was tasked to evaluate the superintendent's performance goals using the 5 standard ratings: did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met, and exceeded. The performance ratings for Dr. Marsden's professional goals were a combination of met and exceeded. Under the Department of Education guidelines, we also evaluate Dr. Marsden on 4 overarching standards: instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. Each year, the school committee approves Dr. Marsden's professional goals following a similar rubric as is used by principals when evaluating teachers. When we approved Medfield 2021, we asked Dr. Marsden to specifically link his goals under each of the state-prescribed standards to our strategic plan. The superintendent's strongest overall rating was Standard 4, Professional Culture, with the majority of the school committee giving him an exemplary rating. Standard 4 is where the education leader promotes the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff by nurturing and sustaining a district-wide culture of reflective practice, high expectations, and continuous learning for staff. Jess Riley writes that Dr. Marsden also spearheaded the initial negotiation of an educational aid contract, which has increased the professional development requirements and increased the level of inclusion of these important professionals into the professional milieu. I love that word.
As do I, it's a therapist thing.
And Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke noted that Dr. Marsden reflected and took action to staff feedback regarding the lack of substitute teachers. After comparing daily substitute pay rates from surrounding towns, he worked within our resources to increase our daily rate so that we may be more competitive and therefore try to attract and keep our substitute teacher pool. Dr. Marsden received an overall rating of proficient on Standard 1, Instructional Leadership, which is where the education leader promotes the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff by cultivating a shared vision that makes powerful teaching and learning the central focus of schooling. Standard 1 is recognized not only as an area of continuous growth, but an area that warrants continuous evaluation and improvement, and his rating in this standard reflects this desire. The superintendent's renaming of the Director of Curriculum position to Director of Instruction and Innovation is not only a symbolic change, but indicative of how we want to grow as a district. Leo Brem stated that the superintendent has long recognized and put many initiatives in place before this current FY20 school year to address many of the needs in Medfield's curriculum and assessment needs. These have included the creation of the Director of Instruction and Innovation position, which will surely help to accelerate the meeting of the curriculum needs in Medfield. And Tim Knight notes that although he has limited experience, based on the Q&A from MCAS and extent of data-driven analysis that is being done, he sees very promising results. We would like to note that our superintendent's responsibilities extend far beyond the 2,600 plus students in our district and their families. In addition to the staff of over 350 teachers, administrators, other professionals, and our school committee, Dr. Marsden is engaged in continuous collaboration with the following groups: the Office of the Town Administrator, the Police and Fire Chiefs, the DPW and Park and Rec Directors. He also serves on the Town Planner Board/Committee and is a director for both Tech and Accept. He is co-president of the Tri-County Superintendents Roundtable, an executive member of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, a Medfield Cares About Prevention leadership member, a Medfield Coalition for Suicide Prevention founding member, and also serves on the MIAA statewide football committee. In addition to the countless meetings and preparations needed for these commitments, he also attends the major events across the Medfield School District: athletic games, music concerts, art shows, award ceremonies, etc. In short, he is an excellent ambassador for the district. There are 3 other areas of note that should be reflected in this evaluation summary. First, Dr. Marsden's dedication through word and action to the social and emotional well-being of our entire district, students and staff alike. He brought in Interface, a much-needed mental health service to Medfield, established the SEL task force, and supported the Challenge Success Initiative. Though the hard work continues, a positive cultural shift has transpired in our schools and community. Secondly, the renovation or relocation of Dale Street School is on a positive trajectory. Acceptance into the MSBA reimbursement program, funding for feasibility study secured, a respected OPM and architect selected. Thirdly, although Dorothy Presser of MASC did not recommend a 360 evaluation, Dr. Marsden took the initiative to have his leadership team give him feedback on his strengths, areas to improve, and feedback on what his short and long-term focus should be. We commend him for taking this extra step, which is indicative of his desire for continued professional growth. One member of the leadership team wrote, "I am incredibly grateful to the work for the superintendent, whom I respect, share common values with, and who always makes decisions, regardless of how difficult, in the best interest of children." Finally, Dr. Marsden's leadership on the FY20 budget and his long-term budget strategy, which garnered overwhelming support at the polls, has put the district in a position to continue to innovate and continue to excel. And as Megan Glenn noted in her summary, Dr. Marsden has and continues to lead in the manner of one with highly respectable and moral character. His resiliency toward the ever-changing events that shape the educational landscape is exemplary and should be noted. The nature of the relationship between this superintendent and the Medfield School Committee is one built on a foundation of collaboration and trust. Any comments? I think we have to vote on this. Do we have a motion to approve this summary based on your reflections?
I motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty, thank you very
Madam
much.
Chair, if I may, I just, want to thank you all for the positive feedback. Certainly it's a wonderful place to be, and the thing I love about Medfield is that it's a place where you have a great group of teachers, administrators, parents, kids. It's really the perfect storm of a school district. It's a great place to be, and everyone, 99% of the people are rowing in the same direction. So it's really nice. And I think everyone cares about what we do in the school district, and they move here for it. Everyone you ask, they move here for it, and that's why they're here. And even if they're just renting the town for 13 years, they're totally committed, and they think it's an important place to be, and people are very proud, and I'm very proud to be here as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Other items since posting on December 17th?
No, I just have a couple informational things, but that can wait till the
Okay.
very end. Thank you.
Great. Old business, Dale Street project update, please.
Well, as you know, we've been very, very, very busy with that. Since our last meeting, we had the MSBA kickoff meeting. The folks from MSBA came to Dale Street, and it's kind of, they go over a couple of the modules, but they just want to make sure that you know where you are and what the expectations are from their perspective. So it was a quick meeting. It was about an hour and a half or so, and they really gave us the parameters of what we need to look for in terms of doing our preferred schematic report and our preliminary design program. Those two key milestones going forward with the project, and they gave us feedback. So our OPM, Leah was there, OPM was there, our architects were there. It's a meeting that every district has. Westwood just had theirs the other day too. So it went very, very well, and they sent us an email afterwards thanking us, and it went well. So I want to pass out the updated schedule, which I have here. So this is the project meetings and milestone schedule. This is going to be updated an awful lot, so we'll post this on the website, but I think folks need to understand that this isn't cast in stone, that we do have some flexibility with this, and if we look at different dates, we may need to move things around based on MSBA or architects not getting what they need to get, or vice versa. So it's a fluid schedule, and we'll be working on it as we go through. So the couple of things to highlight. First of all, you'll see all the meetings, the 5 pages of meetings. But the blue part are school committee meetings. So I think the first one is on page 3. So, you know, what we were originally looking at a schedule where school committee would vote in February to look at the grade configuration. But we've talked about incorporating grade configuration into the visioning session so that it wouldn't, we wouldn't do it that quickly. But you'll see that there's a lot of working group meetings. They're looking at the of myself and Leo presenting the education plan to the school committee on the 27th of February. That is not a scheduled school committee meeting. So I would ask, you don't have to do it tonight, you can do it the next meeting. I ask you consider adding another school committee meeting on the
Okay.
27th so that we can do it at that time frame.
Do we want to try to pin that down now, or do we want to?
Sure, whatever works for you. I wanted to ask you to do that tonight. And then we would look at, that would be the first presentation that you would get of the education plans. You have a couple weeks to look at it, give feedback if need be. And then at the March 12th meeting, vote on the submission of education plans, MSBA. So what we're gonna do is two separate education plans, one for a 4-5 school, one for a 3-4-5 school. So we thought that might be a better way to provide us more time and then get some feedback from MSBA on what they're thinking. I think it's been very clear, I mean, Leo, I think, thinks it as well, that that we prefer a 3-4-5, but I think we still need to have some conversation around that. We're gonna we'll do a presentation why we think that is, but I think we've had conversations for the last year and a half on why 3-4-5 is important, based on the number of kids that are coming into the district. So we would look at a final grade configuration vote and education plan on 4/2/20. So April 2nd would be the target date that we would have for a final vote on the grade configuration to go forward. So you'll see that there are days in May and in June as well that we're far away from that, but it just gives you a really good outline of the number of meetings, what we're working on, what the goals and milestones are, and what we need to be working on. So take a look at it. If you have any questions, I put that other one in your packet too, that shows the milestones from left field. This, to me, is visually, I like this one a little better because it allows you to, it's
you can see it
color-coded
without glasses?
by work group, and, I'm sorry?
Because you can see it
I
without
know,
glasses.
I know, that other one is tough to read. It's
Now,
really tough to read.
is there a sheet that, or some sort of one-pager or two-pager that could be sent out either by the press, the patch, the Hometown Weekly, just so the greater community knows? Because I know there's the website.
Right,
And you
right.
do your blog, and that's to the school community.
And we do
so
have
I'm
a
just-
Twitter for the Dale Street Project as well, too, so we're putting stuff out there. We have almost, I don't know, we have like 70 followers now, which is great. We just put it out last week, so.
Okay.
I'd really like to see the town also participating in the publicity for this project. I mean, obviously, this is school-based, but the public safety building was fire and police-based, and they were not required to do their own publicity and reach out to. Same thing with the DPW. So I do think that it's one of those things that we should bring up in committee when
Yeah.
you guys are there, that, that there needs to be a level of outreach on their parts as well. They do have, probably
And-
more resources in that way, and it is a collaboration.
Yep, for
This
sure.
is not just us saying we need a school building. This is a community project, and we need to treat it as such.
But I think if we can engage the greater
Absolutely.
community and not just our very own population,
Yeah.
that would
Right,
benefit
right.
everybody.
I would really like to see
So
some
that
support around that.
our OPM has some good ideas around that too.
Good.
So one of the things that she suggested that she's done in the past is provide time during the weekday and during the day where we would be at, say, Blue Moon or Brothers or other places, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, wherever, and just have conversations with folks that have questions about the project.
Right.
So make ourselves available for an hour and a half here, an hour and a half there, and just, we'll get it out there somehow, but we'll put the word out through Twitter or,
The press.
yeah, the
Yeah.
press, I
Yeah.
think Hometown Weekly goes to everyone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
And I think Patch is another great one that goes to a lot of people, so we'll,
Yep.
we'll get that out once that's the first of the year that Lynn wanted to do some of that work, so,
Great.
Sounds a lot like the old office hours.
yeah. It does.
I think so. I visited, speaking of office hours, and it's going on a slight tangent, is I've written down all the PTO meetings, and if we can divide and conquer and put ourselves out there versus expecting people to come to us and adding one more thing to folks' calendars, I think that would be proactive.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I actually went ahead and did that after our last meeting, so I have all the PTOs, so I will let you know which ones I'm going to, so that we're not.
Sure,
So we don't
because
have
the
to go on.
next one is Dale Street on the 7th of January. But
not
anyways,
that one.
if that's all right, so we'll
I think, yeah, if we.
figure that out.
And I mentioned to them.
Submit what we can do to
I met
animate
with the
and-
K-8
Yeah.
folks last week, and I'll be going to their meetings like I did last year with the budget and talk a little bit
I'm
about
sorry,
that.
repeat, where were you?
I met with the K-8 PTO.
Oh, okay.
We had a
right, yeah.
meeting about something
Yeah.
else, and so that we're gonna do that and some of the other
Beautiful.
groups in town, so.
And then there's in mid-January, what is on the 15th, there's a superintendent's parent advisory council meeting, and I assume that
On
you'll
the
be doing.
15th?
Isn't it the 15th?
That's the meeting formerly called that, now it's called Superintendent Parent Coffee.
Okay.
The
Well, that's
SPAC.
also,
Yeah.
It makes it
This-
sound more informal.
if it's
That's what it is.
January 15th, it's actually the same date, and if it's at 9 a.m. as the Memorial PTO. Just FYI.
So we'll have to
Okay.
divide and conquer
Okay.
that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right.
FYI, but we'll sort that out. All right.
So at our last school building committee meeting this past week, finalized the Arrow Street contract, so that's our architects on board. We continue to work with on our education plan, which is a big milestone for us. So I was able to meet with all the department chairs the other day to talk about, how we can work together on this, because there are certain parts of it that their expertise would be really important. So we're working with them, with Mary, with Steve, with Christine. So it's a big collaborative process in doing this education plan, the actual writing of it. So we're working on that. They had on-site contractors yesterday, and then again tomorrow, once the kids are out, to walk around the school, look at the building. They're required to do an existing conditions report to MSBA. So that existing conditions report is just what is Dale Street, what's it look like? Because MSBA wants you to go through that process. Is it gonna be a reno ad, or is it gonna be a new building? So that's part of that whole existing conditions report. And then we established the educational programming subcommittee at the last meeting as well, so that we have the larger group that's gonna be working on those visioning, which we have about 25, 26 people. And then we have a smaller subcommittee group that's gonna be doing some other work around that too, so.
So how was that chosen? Just leadership?
Which one?
Both, really.
Oh, so the larger one was really folks that have shown an interest in the project. Either they're, already in PTO, they've done some volunteering in the schools, all of that.
Okay.
Folks that showed up that evening that wanted to help out, or, for instance, CPAC, like anyone that's involved already in the schools.
Gus mentioned, Chairman Murby mentioned that he would be doing
Gus will
some
be
of
a part
work
of
as
that,
well.
Mike Pastore will be a part of that. So, warrant committee, board of selectmen. So we just try to get a wide range of people that, whether they're parents, teachers, educators, town officials, to try to get them on board on that, so.
And then the educational subcommittee, what was that?
That's just
What's the
a-
membership of that?
So that's just the group part of that group, so I have the names here,
Yeah,
it's 10 members. Yeah, I got it right here. So Amy Colleran, Steve Grenham, Michael LaFrancesca, Bethany Sanger, Leanne DePisa, Mary Brule, Leo, Anna Mae, Erin Watson, Christine Powers, and I'll be on that as well.
so it's the slacker group,
It is,
yeah.
very much so.
Very good.
So that's where we are. We have some meetings over vacation. We have a working group meeting, I think, on the 30th, that we're gonna get together and look at some more information, but just, keep it moving. So it's in constant movement, that's for sure. But again, this will be posted online for people that wanna look at it, and it could be fluid,
Okay.
all right?
Sorry, Tim, did you?
Yeah, I was
have-
just going, the one point you said is, part of what you're trying to do is get out there. You said whether it's Starbucks or, places. I mean, I would say almost on that following, like you're saying, is go to where the meetings are already.
Right.
Thinking about going to the meetings that are not, the people that aren't necessarily in the schools, I think would be the brainstorming aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
Like a little while ago, when we were doing the hospital and the rezoning, you know, like, I'm just wondering, as we think about it, it would be a better way to get a more cross kind of functional
Cross-section,
view of
yeah.
things.
Right.
And I'm
good
not,
idea.
nothing jumps off the page at me is, what is it the town's going, you know?
Yeah.
Where's it going, but I think that's, you know, people, if you're at the school, there's gonna be generally, people are more supportive.
No,
Yeah,
you're
we're open to
right.
anything on that, Tim. Any ideas that you have on that, we're open to any of that, because we just want to get out as much as we can, and that's what we're looking at is what Left Field has done with other projects, but I will do anything. You know, I remember when we did the override, we had meetings at, what's that place at Kingsbury?
Ice House,
I'm sorry?
the Ice
Ice
House.
House.
Ice House, right. We did something up there, so I'll, whatever. If neighborhood folks want to do it, I'll gladly go to neighborhood, whatever people want to do.
Even thinking of Memo or,
Memo, exactly,
you
yeah.
know, the Lions,
Mhm.
things like that, new in town, because they're not yet in our school system,
Yeah,
some
Right.
of them,
awareness of what's
you
going on.
know. But they were
Yeah, those are
good.
great ideas.
I also think we can encourage everyone, there's no, everybody who has a phone can download our app, you know, honestly, and have.
Right.
It's not, you know, like that you have to have some sort of like student record number to be able to download that. So
Mhm.
it is something that you can have the information right at your fingertips if you should decide that you want to download them. It's not, you know, exclusive to school population.
Right,
Right.
good point.
Yeah, it's probably about time in January to send another one of those videos out about the app to
Yeah.
get folks on board with that too. I think the snow naturally gets people to download it, but I think maybe we'll do it again, get it
Good
out there.
idea.
I don't know if Leo have anything else to share, but I just try to do a broad brush of what we're working on.
I think people who aren't in the schools too actually would be really interested to see what happens
Yeah.
here day to day, because I think that the nature of education has changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
And what not only are we required to do, but what we take great pleasure in doing
Mm-hmm.
is so very different from what education was even like 30 years ago.
Right.
That it would be, you know, something that people would be very interested in.
For sure.
I think it is interesting.
Sorry, Leo, didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah.
I shall save this.
No, I think you're right. It'd be
Closing
good to include
remarks.
folks, to get into the schools,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the heart of the community, and so much is gonna happen out of it.
Beautiful.
All right, any other idea, let me know if you have any other ideas. I think those are all good. We'll work on those.
Great. Donations?
Oh, donations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Marsh, is there a reason why Holly Crawford, the principal of Wheelock, isn't on that subcommittee?
I mean, I think this is an internal conversation that we had, that's all. So old business, donations. I ask you to accept the donations, $1,374 for Wheelock PTO for the Tanglewood Marionettes, and $200 donated to the Medfield Public Schools from Leaders Environmental. I ask you to approve those as presented.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And thank you.
Very much. All right. Passes. Superintendent's report to the community, committee.
So we did our
that?
budget,
Yep.
first draft. So I just have a quick informational item. I actually had two, and I didn't bring the other one. One of them, I don't know if anyone saw it, but it was in the Globe this week, originally in the Washington Post. And it was written by a parent of a student that survived Newtown. I'll send it to you because it's amazing, and it really puts things in perspective in terms of now her son is 14, and that basically because the person that did that ended up taking a right instead of a left, her son is 14. It's just puts it all in perspective. I meant to copy it for you, but I'll send it to you. It was originally in the Post earlier this week in the Globe. I think it was midweek. It was really something. So just take one of those. So it's related to Dale Street, this particular update. Wait till everyone gets a copy. So our OPM, Lynn Stapleton, had talked to me about getting an email and some feedback from a citizen regarding the strategic plan survey results that we did several years ago. So I've cleared it up with the OPM, and I know I talked to members of the building committee, but I just wanted to make sure that we had it on record here so that it was clear. It was something around the strategic plan talked about grade configuration or something like that, around those lines. I just want to be clear that the strategic plan survey never addressed grade configuration, it addressed the structure of the schools. The survey said, and I read, the focus groups determined that the following were strengths of the Medfield Public Schools. Please rate your level of agreement with the following strengths, and the ranking was a Likert scale. Strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, or no opinion. And the question was, again, students attend all grades together, K to 12 versus neighborhood schools. And that question was put there because we had gotten some feedback from people that were not crazy about our current structure. And we wanted to get some feedback on that to see exactly, what folks were thinking. So we had over 700, I think we had 787 responses to that survey, give or take, and a couple left that one blank. 403 responses strongly agree, 255 responses agree, 48 disagree, 16 strongly disagree, and then no opinion was 63. So again, that had nothing to do with grade configuration. It was structure of schools, because some folks weren't crazy about the way their kids couldn't reinvent themselves. So it was really taking a look at, would the new building or would anything be a neighborhood school versus the way we do it? That was the question. That was the data we got. That has not been what's out there. So I just want to be clear about that. That is what we want to put that on the record so that we have that. Is what it was.
Jeff, we have some natural barriers with the possibility of neighborhood schools because of just locations. Like the idea of a neighborhood school is you'd be able to walk to it.
Right.
Essentially. And where our town is small enough that we if strategically placed 3 buildings throughout it, that could be possible. But I don't think we're in the position to do that.
Absolutely not.
50 years later, we're not. in the
Yeah,
position to do that.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
So, and I think, although I remember this question, because I had recently moved to town and attended one of those meetings, one of those meetings at the time. And I quite I wasn't sure how I felt about the way they were structured. Having gone through it now, it's less about, and I'm gonna ask you next about how that was for you, but I think it's more the transition from one building to another,
Right.
the damaging part that I hear the most feedback from and have experienced. So much so, we're prepping for the move to Dale already right now, starting on January 16th, just to make that transition that much better for my son. So I think that is the real focus and the question here, as opposed to the reconfiguration per se. Now with that,
Are you going to be able to answer that, Kim? Were you here in
Can-
elementary school?
I was not.
Middle,
So
right?
I
Yeah,
attended
you
seventh
came here in
grade,
middle.
Yeah.
So I only went from Blake to Medfield.
Yeah.
I guess the point is that, when there's
Although
a,
the big transition from China,
yeah, I would say so.
That was-
That's a
that
big
was a little-
transition.
That was a little.
I mean, I don't want to put anything on you, but
It was.
I'd say just because, some of you have come to me about this too, and I know that Lynn did as well, that is not the intent of that question, because it didn't ask grade configuration, it asked structure of this district itself. So that there can't be a false narrative out there saying that we already have this data of grade configuration and everyone likes it the way it is, because that's not what it is. That's not what the question asked, so it can't be out there as truth, because it's not, it's false. So we have it on the record, and we clear that up. I cleared it up with the architects and also with our OPM as well, so.
this takes a lot of time to clarify these.
We almost need to have a full-time fact checker on Facebook just to do some of this work, but anyway.
All right, well, moving on.
Anything else on the informational items?
Nothing else, Madam Chair.
Okay. So future agenda items, National Honor Society criteria, FY20 budget, social studies frameworks discussion, the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, and our next meeting is on the 9th. And do we have any closing remarks from anyone? Campbell, what's new?
So since the last meeting, not a ton. It's over the last few breaks and leading up to the one vacation next week, which is very exciting for everybody. I'm sure you guys are all excited. Throughout the last week, we had candy cane sales, which everyone buys candy canes, are like 50 cents. We send it to a friend with a note. It's just a lot of fun, stuff like that. A lot of holiday stuff like that. Tomorrow we have the Spirit Day. It's just pajamas, hot chocolate in the morning. A lot of relax, kind of preparing for vacation. So everyone's just excited for that.
Hey, Cam, just a quick question. This is the first year I ever got an email about the candy cane sales that they sent it to the parents.
Okay.
Was there a reason why?
I think
I
it
didn't know if they
made,
wanted parents to buy
Yeah.
candy canes.
I'm not sure exactly for that reason. I remember that being discussed, that it was being sent to parents. I think it was just another way to publicize it, kind of get it known, because, well, for seniors, for one, most of us don't go to lunch anymore. So
Okay,
that's just kind
okay,
of getting that word out, or people, it's kind of hard to not see that one booth in the cafeteria, just
okay.
having that extra reminder.
Well, I
at
did
home.
remind my daughter to like,
Thank you.
to
It's a
get-
big help.
do it for
So
your
that's-
teachers. Okay, all right,
It
cool.
worked then, so that's it's great.
You
to hear.
did, you
How many did
should.
you
Say
buy,
thank
young
you.
man?
It's sweet. All right, thanks.
Sweet.
Sounds like the whole district will be in
Our-
pajamas tomorrow, cause what I understand is both my kids are going in their pajamas tomorrow, so. I'll spare you all, I will not drop them off in their pajamas.
You should, why not?
Heck, I bring my kids to my school in my pajamas most of the time. so-
It's like every other day, right? Not special.
Okay, there have been occasions,
If
when
I'm
I'm
driving
doing the
a
drop off.
coat.
Please don't get in an accident. Please don't get in an accident.
Totally.
I don't think I have much as far as closing comments, just wishing everyone a safe holiday and a nice break. I'm certainly looking forward to it. So, I hope everyone else is as well. So, and that's about it.
Yeah, ditto that after, I don't even know how to describe the last couple of weeks that I've had, so they're just not, they haven't been great, but I'm enlightened by coming here and just realizing how positive and good this district and this town is, and this year will end eventually, and we'll start a new one
It's
again.
inevitable.
Stay
Yes.
hopeful, stay hopeful.
This is the season of hope.
Indeed.
And Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holiday.
Christmas sweater. It's getting it.
Oh,
Oh, Mike
Michael's
Mike
gone.
left.
Thank you for
Yeah,
not
he
saying
was
the
other one.
ugly Christmas.
I didn't say
sweater.
I
was
was
like-
nice, because there's that in it, it can work in St. Patty's Day too.
Okay,
so.
there you go.
It's not 9 o'clock yet, so we can't get punchy.
Pay it forward. Oh, sister. Too late for me.
No, I don't have much. Congratulations to Jeff, and the evaluation was great. And anime, that's my first time being involved in it. I know it's a lot of work on your and all of our part, so I think that's good. It's a nice.
In a pair, it'll be so much better.
Oh, yeah. No, a few of those. And I'm excited to take on some of these different subcommittees, learning about policies and whatnot.
I think there's, with only 5 members on there, there's a lot to spread around. A lot of places have 7-member committees.
Right.
To spread those responsibilities, so I think the tandem is gonna be helpful.
Yeah, and we each have 2, so we've
Yep.
we've spread the love, and it'll be good.
Let's see, I guess, actually, my high point for the last couple of weeks is that I've gotten to spend time in the high school last Tuesday, Monday. I shadowed
She
a
fits
kid
right in too,
after.
by the way.
Oh, I
I
totally
caught her
fit
in the
right in.
hallway.
They are so like, oh my God, who's that lady?
You were in one of my daughter's classes, so she said.
Yes, I know. So that's always wonderful. And then Sarah Raposa and I, on Friday, went into the lunches without the seniors because none of you are there.
My son is crazy that it happened so early for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
He went mental.
We asked, Robert has been really helpful with the townwide master plan in that we sent a survey out to 9th through 12th, and then also managed to get it incorporated into the civics curriculum of the 8th graders. So they have answered,
Bravo.
or the civics class. They have answered classes, and actually my son said that he actually talked about it before he realized that it was me who
Yeah.
sent it out. But it was really fun, and we, Sarah and I went and literally talked to 300 kids face to face around what they could see, what they really liked about being in Medfield, what they feel like Medfield is missing for their age group, and then in kind of just an exercise about what would it take for them to come back someday, or to continue to live here as young adults. And I think, that's a
Great question.
harder question, but it's
Great
really
question.
the one that we're trying to focus on the most, right? I mean, this is a 15 to 20-year plan.
Right.
That's not my plan, that's your plan. So answer your survey.
I did.
Thank you,
English class.
thank you. Oh, yes. Oh, I love this place.
So were there some themes?
Oh, yeah, ice cream.
What were-
No, actually,
What were the
that's
big
the joke.
themes?
The big themes were that there is nothing for us to really do here that is informal and independence-minded. I have to say, I was so impressed by how much they were all going towards the same thing, which is how do I independently develop my friendships? How do I independently manage to get from place to place, right? How do I get to, even things like, I want a community rec center because I realize that a lot of my friends can't or would not choose to belong to Kingsbury. And so if I just want to play a basketball game, now that the courts are going to be open, or work out or whatever, there's no informal gathering place for me. Every single one of them is like, can we just get a diner or a fast food joint around here? Something.
Yeah, so true.
So kind of the continuing theme of Deadfield,
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were really thinking about it in very proactive ways. We need more sidewalks, and I'd love to have bike paths, and can we get some kind of intra-town transportation? And I actually, because I know that this has been something that we've talked about, I asked my kids, if there was a late bus, if there was an activities bus, do you think that that's something that you would use? And I say probably, especially with the group I was asking, because they don't have licenses yet, they were like, yeah, we would make use of that, because I know that there are people who can't stay after school for extra help. There are kids, so that's one of those things that we're always talking about, how do we do that?
Working on it.
I know, but I do have to say that, they were like, yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing that really struck me, is that we have so much developed for our kids that is, as a town, that's structured, like you do your soccer club, you do this, you do that. But they
It's always managed by
naturally
an
know
adult.
how important it is for them to independently develop their own social lives, their own world. And we're trying to put these things into place because there isn't much, but given the proper environment, they would do it on their own, which is what we're really looking for, right? Anyway, basically I smiled for like 2 days. It was
That's
great.
awesome. That's great work.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
then, I just, if I can briefly, just say, I wanna thank you so much for mentioning the article on Sandy Hook, because I think that as a school committee, on an anniversary in which it was 7 years ago, and most of the children who died were 7 years old, and I have a 14-year-old as well. And the idea that I have him, and they don't have their children, but I also was at the selectmen's meeting, and Gus, Chairman Murby, mentioned that his son was at Pensacola, and that's where he's stationed right now. And he gave a very heartfelt kind of tribute to the men who died. And talked about the first responders, and I have to say that it really occurred to me that within our world, our first responders are our teachers on every level, be it, God forbid, having to save a child's life, or responding to their need, or seeing what's happening coming in the door. And I made a list of the teachers who had died since Sandy Hook, but I'm not going to read it right now. I have to say it took me 40 minutes to compile it because I had to continue to go through lists upon lists upon lists of children who have been injured, teachers who have been injured, children who have been killed. And it was a very painful 40 minutes. But I do want to say that I appreciate so much our teachers on so many levels.
Mhm. Ditto.
And that's my sad part of the announcement. I don't usually go there, but thank you.
Thank you. I'm sad.
I know, I'm sorry. I knew you would do it and then I would go.
But anyways, thank you. I'm grateful. What I'm grateful for are all the young people who are back home, and I love that energy back in town, and all the kids who are coming home from their adventures, college, travel.
A lot of long hair. A lot of long hair, I'm
A lot
saying.
of hair everywhere. Anyways, I'm just grateful they are healthy, safe, and well, and back home. And next year we'll be seeing you at Brothers or something with Campbell. Anyways, so that just fills me.
It's neat. It's neat when you see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just, tonight, I had the opportunity before our meeting to go to the boys' basketball game for a bit and just to see all the girls' basketball team supporting the boys' basketball team. And then I got to see 4 songs at the concert before I ran down here. And just always reminds you how great our kids are and how talented they are and just how fortunate we all are to have just really great kids around here. So always a nice reminder.
Sorry, one more thing, at that education or the visioning meeting, when Melissa's daughter stood
great.
up and had
She's a good
her
kid.
comments, I was like, right on.
great.
That
She's
fifth
also my
grader.
Girl Scout cookie pipeline in a very bad way.
I was that meant a lot to me, and I
Yeah.
thought that was awesome.
So we're doing a
and
visioning one with the kids too, so that'll be great.
That is
Yeah.
brilliant. She had some great ideas, and I loved how the architect noticed that she had schematics already.
Yeah, she was drawing the whole school.
I know, I love that. They
very
have so much
self-possessed, too.
value.
Could have saved
so-
millions, just brought her in.
But I
Well
think
said.
if we connect the dots, the work you're doing, that, listening to the kids, there's a lot there.
There's,
So
there's a Park and Recs kind of feedback, catch up, visioning, just when we come back. And I really think that we all need to be thinking about how we're supporting our kids in our community this way.
Right.
connecting dots. So on that note, happy holidays. And
Happy
do we
holidays.
have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Anyone?
I second.
All right.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Merry Christmas.
See you next year.
The proceeding was a production of Medfield TV, Community Shows.